Ryan Sweeney says, I think Zelensky looked dirty and rude. Why did Zelensky start the serious conversation in front of the camera? He was deliberately talking about stuff that wasn't even on the table and in front of the camera. I don't think he was particularly, first of all. What is on the table is something very specific and quite clever. Let's put that very clearly down there. It's a clever proposal. The proposal is essentially Americans would go to Ukraine and would be involved in mining for these minerals, and that would put American boots on the ground, not soldiers, but Americans. And Trump's assumption is that Putin wouldn't attack Ukraine, that would have so many Americans working on the territory. It's a clever assumption. What Zelensky undoubtedly is worried about is what would happen after Trump's presidency ends and after these mines are raided. Number one. Number two, Zelensky is also worried about giving away the family silver. And for that, I think he faces a lot of pressure domestically. And so I think those are the two issues. If Europe can offer Ukraine a defense pact rather than a sort of boots on the ground monitoring proposal, so again, what is being offered is a defense of Ukraine rather than anything that looks hostile to Russia. Again, that would be very good. And if this meeting in the Oval Office has pressured Starmer to suddenly find his backbone, Macron and Europe to suddenly come up with this proposal about what effectively is an Iron Dome, then this is good. It means in the long run, Zelensky or someone else can do that deal with Trump, and that deal could be the template of the way forward. My own instinct is that Trump probably has to go at least 2/3 of the way to get this. I don't think it's about Zelensky going crawling back, because in the end, this mining deal is to America's advantage. It also sells the idea that to Trump's base that this isn't going to cost America anything, that America is not losing money by backing Europe. On the Russian front, Lavrov has been really quite ferocious and saying things like it's in Europe, the Europe of the of all the tragedies. This is where all the problems occur. Well, he might be right, but the problems also occur in Russia, and he has to recognise Russia is the one that invaded Ukraine. We can't forget that, and it's a process which began not in 2022. That's when the tanks rolled down towards Kyiv, but it began at least in 2014, and I would place it in 2012. I was in Russia. I was teaching in Russia at the time, so I was well aware of what was going on. And now it's in its third year, and I think again the modifying of the position by Lavrov is excellent. When Lavrov talking about Donald Trump's common sense aim to end the war, it's in everyone's interest to have peace. That is not the same as a ceasefire, and a bad ceasefire is probably the worst result of all this posturing. I think I come back to the idea that I think Vance was foolish and inhospitable, and that this is not Zelensky's fault. But there are ways of dealing with Russian presidents, as various American presidents have found. There are ways of dealing with American presidents. Essentially, the bluster that we saw in the Oval Office should have happened behind closed doors, and that was that was primarily the failing of Vance. And the idea that Zelensky was threatening the United States with his talk about a nice ocean and that, you're not safe this side of the ocean, that isn't a threat. That was fortune-telling if we don't get this right. In the same way as Europe is not safe if we don't get this right, so too that the Russian aggression will spiral out of control. We have to get this right. And that is all Zelensky was saying. Now, maybe it was a little ham-fisted because English is not his first language, not even his second language. I believe Zelensky's first language is Russian, as was the case with most people that I've known who've come from Ukraine. And in a boost to national pride, Ukraine has been taught and encouraged in schools and in public buildings, and Zelensky has brushed up his Ukrainian. But this has been appallingly handled by Russia, appallingly handled by America. There are some good ideas. They're being very badly presented. I don't think Zelensky has done anything wrong. If anything, he's done a great deal right by holding an interview in a third language and making the effort to talk the same language as the people in the room. This is phenomenal. This is not an act of discourtesy. This is an act of gross courtesy. And Vance needs to grow up. He needs to get out of his gerbil stage and start learning how to behave like a proper domesticated animal.